Are you trying to create a beautiful home that feels elevated and luxury, but you're also on a tight budget? Today, I'm talking all about how we can create beautiful, expensive looking spaces in our homes, even if we're on a budget. First things first, this video is just meant to be fun and inspiring. It doesn't matter what space you live in. I always say just try to love the space that you're in and make it work within your season of life and your current budget. Focus on creating a home or spaces within your home that are just really inviting and intentional. I think the number one thing in like the umbrella of creating a home that looks high-end and luxury is that it just feels intentional. It feels well curated and it wasn't just thrown together. It was thought out and planned. Which brings me to my first point. Don't forget to plan first. This is so important because in design, we can get so overwhelmed because not only are there so many different design styles, but if you're on a budget, you also have to think of what items you need to get to add to your space. Do you need to get rid of any things that you currently have in your space? So really doing some research, trying to figure out your design style, and then going from there to figure out what furniture you'll need or decor pieces that coordinate with that specific style or styles that you're drawn to. If you don't plan at all, that's when your spaces tend to look really messy and unintentional. You know, you have kind of like the college dorm room feel where you're just getting a hodgepodge of furniture and materials and just trying to fill your space rather than taking a step back and really asking yourself, how are we using this space? What is my color palette? What is the styles that I'm actually drawn to? So then in turn, you can create a space that at the end of the day speaks to you and your personality. So while you're in this design process of collecting things, I highly encourage you to create mood boards. It doesn't have to be just one because I feel like we get really overwhelmed when we're forced to make really confined decisions. I personally don't like to be put into a box of design. I like to add my personality, and at the end of the day, I do want my home to feel curated and intentional. But creating a mood board or 2 or 3 is a really easy way for you to look at what you've created and what you've pulled together, and then you'll see the common pieces within each mood board, and then you can draw your inspiration from there. It's just a great way for you to get to know your personality when it comes to design style. All right, moving on to number 2, creating focal points in our home. So for example, I'm currently sitting in our great room. When you walk into our home, it's an open floor plan. You see everything. You see the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, it's all open. And when you walk into a vast space that doesn't have anywhere for your eye to land, it can feel really flat and kind of sterile. So I really made a point to focus on creating those focal points for that visual interest. So for example, behind me here is our dining room, and on the big blank wall, I decided I wanted to create a gallery wall where I could put photos of our family, and then I can switch those out as I want. And I think it's just a timeless look. I personally usually do black and white pictures because I think it's kind of creates like a vintage, timeless look, but at any point I could easily swap them out for colorful pictures, and that would be another fun way to add color into our home as well. There's endless focal points that you could do for a large wall. You could do a mirror with sconces on either side, or gallery walls that are, you know, various shapes and sizes of frames. But definitely have fun with it. Again, do your research. You want to make sure whatever pieces you are using on a wall to create those focal points are to scale. You don't want to get art that's too small because it feels very underwhelming and that doesn't feel intentional at all. It feels a little bit awkward to the eye. Usually in design, rules of 3 and 5 is more aesthetic. So for example, on our gallery wall, I did groups 3 photos, but 2 of them. So 6 photos total. And I think it just frames the wall space very well. And then on the other side of the room is our living room, and I knew I wanted to create a fireplace wall that not only created a beautiful focal point with the fireplace wall going to the ceiling, but also I wanted built-in shelves on either side with some closed storage at the bottom, because we have small children, so I knew I wanted a place where I could tuck away toys or those unsightly things and just have them contained out of sight. And then I wanted open bookshelves to where I could display things like my books and decor pieces I love and photos of my family. And my husband built this beautiful built-in fireplace wall for us, and I absolutely love it. It's probably my favorite thing in our whole home. He did such a good job. And touching on the budget, we did not have the budget to do a stone fireplace or a tile. It was just not in our budget. So we opted to invest in a stamped pattern where we essentially painted a brick pattern onto a template and then stamped it onto the wall and then added some texture after. And it created this kind of faux brick whitewash look that to the naked eye, it kind of looks real. It gives the illusion and the look that we were going for without breaking the bank. And it also just ties in the other design style of our home. All right, moving on to number 3, lighting. I feel like it's such an obvious one, but just having more than one light source in a room. Instead of having just your overhead lighting, whether it's can lights or a single light in a space, make sure that you have other light sources going on, whether it's wall sconces or floor lamps or table lamps. Just really don't be afraid to add in extra lighting. It creates different ambiance, but it also creates different textures and visual interest to your space. And sometimes in trying to fake that high-end look, we're really just trying to recreate a mood that we feel in a space. And when I think of, a high-end hotel or a luxury space, I feel very cozy and calm in those spaces. So we're really trying to recreate that through the lighting in your home. They have so many options on Amazon or Wayfair from, battery operated or rechargeable lamps and sconces. So don't let the fact that you don't have electricity in a certain area of your space stop you from adding that lighting. There's so many options. Also with lighting, I think it's so beautiful to have plants lit up either from the bottom or the top, and framed artwork or family photos. They have beautiful light sources to kind of highlight those decorative elements in our home. Even LED lights, whether it's kind of framing something or highlighting an area, a staircase or something like that, I would just do your research if you're gonna do LEDs. I believe they're diffused LEDs. I think they look a little bit softer, and then you don't get the look of the actual little LED button lights where they do a covering. It diffuses it and it makes it look a lot more high-end. Also with lighting and lamps, I wouldn't focus on having everything really matching either. A lot of times if you go to a store, you can buy a set of 2 lamps. I would try to curate your home with getting away from the matchy sets or breaking them up in your home, maybe using one in your living room and then one in your dining room, things like that. While I do my matching lights on my nightstands in my bedroom, I just feel like there's something about symmetry on each side of my bed for whatever reason. I think that looks a little bit better when they're matching. But outside of that, as far as the living room or dining room spaces, just have fun with it. I think it creates a more eclectic look as well, which in turn can kind of fake that high-end look. All right, number 4, actually adding in pops of high-end materials, real stones, whether that's marble or some sort of crystal, those natural stone-like elements, whether it's a tray to kind of contain your keys in your entryway or a stone dish on your coffee table to house remotes or other things. Using crystals or rocks as decor pieces just adds a really nice earthy texture. And any of those natural elements are really grounding. And I think, again, creating that calm, peaceful vibe really speaks to the high-end luxury look. Those could be just investing in your sofa in your living room, or maybe you do a higher-end coffee table, or you splurge on your dining room table or a statement credenza or something like that. And it doesn't always have to be those big ticket items, but I think actually introducing those high-end materials here and there really creates the look of a luxury home. And now you don't have to have every piece in your home be high-end and expensive. That would defeat the point of staying budget friendly, but you can save up for those items. I always say in design, take your time. We're not in a rush. We're trying to create beautiful spaces in our home. And at the end of the day, if we have a fully furnished home and nothing feels right because we just splurged on these things to fill the spaces, then it doesn't matter anyways, we're still not happy. So really take your time, be intentional about the items that you're buying. And if you really have your heart set on getting that expensive sofa or chair or whatever it may be, just save up until you can get that piece and just make do with what you have in the meantime. You won't regret it. I've done this myself. When we first moved into our house, we were previously living in a 900 square foot home. So when we moved into our new house, which is a more wide open floor plan, our furniture was not to scale. It felt really underwhelming and didn't feel substantial at all in the space. But again, we didn't have the budget to go out and buy all new furniture. So slowly after we moved in, and the next few years was just, every paycheck or every other paycheck, I would add a little bit, maybe get a dining room table. And then 6 months later, we would invest in a couch. Taking time and slowly filling your house with those pieces that you truly love and investing in the ones that are really important to you. Number 5, curtains and window treatments. So I feel like everybody talks about just bringing your curtains up as high as they can and as wide as they can go. I think there's so much more than just raising your curtains, because you also have to think, if you're expanding your curtains out, you're gonna need to add more panels, because when you close it, they're not going to be able to cover the entire window. So this might be a place where you do have to invest a little bit more in an extra curtain panel or two, just to make sure that you have that nice full look with the curtains, even when they're closed. And just remember, when you are raising your curtains higher to the ceiling and wider, make sure that they are going all the way to the floor as well. When you raise your curtains high and then they stop 3/4 of the way down, that just is an eyesore. Your eye is drawn right to that area and it just feels off and doesn't feel very high end at all. So definitely make sure that the length of the curtains kind of accommodates for you raising it to the ceiling. Another way that you can create more of an upscale or luxury look with your window treatments is by layering. In our main area, when you walk into our house, the whole back wall of our home is windows. And I didn't want to cover up the windows. And I didn't want my curtains to have to be drawn all the time, because we do get a lot of afternoon sun coming in. So we opted for blinds that we can retract or keep down, and then we can close them. And then we also have panels of curtains. Typically, I'm keeping the curtains open and then I'm just using my blinds for shade or privacy. And I think it feels more luxury, but we have the option for privacy and keeping the sun out when we need it. And if you don't like traditional blinds, they have many other treatment options, from Roman shades or other inspiration. So definitely research different window treatments and try to create that layered look as well. All right, number 6, creating a cohesive color palette. Now, I feel like everything doesn't have to be neutral. Personally, in my home, the majority of my big items are neutral, and then I have pops of color through some of my rugs, my pillows, decor pieces, things like that. But those big ticket items, for me personally, I like to play it a little bit more safe with a neutral finish, simply because those are usually way more expensive, and I can easily change out the color of a pillow, or even a rug is a cheaper way to change up the whole look of your space, rather than having to reinvest in a large furniture piece when you no longer like your decor or your color palette that you've chose. I think the way high-end looking spaces are done really well with pops of color is it's never just one tone of a pop of color. If the accent color is green, or maybe they have green and blue, it's not the same shade of blue and the same material of blue and green throughout the entire space. You'll see, different textures, patterns, different hues. Some are bright, some are light and more muted. And I think that really creates, again, that curated, intentional, versus just going to the store and buying the matching set of everything. Because I think nothing screams like cheap decor than having everything look like it was just bought off of a showroom floor. All right, number 7, scent. So I feel like this can be a sensitive topic for people, because a lot of people have sensitive noses and there's a lot of chemicals in, things like candles and other things. But if you've ever walked into a space that just feels a little bit more elevated, it usually has a great smell associated with that space. I recommend trying to find your signature scent, whether that's through essential oils or diffusers or candles. I mean, there's so many different scent options. You can lightly scent your home. Even just boiling some water with some citrus and other elements can really make your home feel fresh. And don't forget to open up your windows and let that fresh air through your home. There's nothing worse than when you walk into a home and it just feels very stagnant. The air feels heavy. So I definitely recommend opening up the windows, getting some airflow in there. Sometimes that's all our homes need. I personally like to scent my home according to the season. So we live here in Minnesota, so we typically get all 4 seasons. I tend to do more like beachy, salty scents in the spring and summer. And then in the fall and winter, I'm doing more like teak woods and vanillas. I don't want my house to smell like pumpkin pie or anything really edible. I get a little bit headache induced from that, but I love scent and I'm not super sensitive to it. So I just use it occasionally to kind of scent my home, especially if I'm having company. And I think it's a great way to create an inviting space in your home. Number 8, DIY upgrades. I saved this for last because even though you're doing a project DIY, sometimes these things can be expensive. When I'm thinking DIY to elevate a space, I'm thinking changing out things in our home, like light switch covers, the builder grade overhead lights, doors, even hardware, doorknobs can make a huge impact on your home. But I wouldn't really say that they're budget friendly because things are expensive, and depending on if you're renovating and replacing doors, depending on how many doors you have and doorknobs, it can get a little bit pricey. But it's definitely a way I've personally been able to tie in my personal decor style on a tight budget. I've never been afraid to look into DIY projects and ways that I can kind of fake that high-end look without breaking the bank. If it's in your budget and you feel like you could tackle a DIY project, I highly recommend it. All right, that's all I had for you today. I hope you found some takeaways from today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.